Greek interaction and influence over the Jewish people begins with the rise of Alexander the Great. Alexander assumes power at the age of 20 in the year 336 before the Common Era, and he begins the unprecedented conquest of the entire known world. He captures the Persians, and he goes all the way as far as India. Now, Alexander is probably history's greatest military tactician, and over the course of his 10-year conquest, he actually never lost a battle. And Alexander is famous in the history of Jerusalem because Alexander was the only one to conquer Jerusalem peacefully without a battle. And in fact, Alexander was very friendly towards the Jews, and as a result, the Jewish people adopted his name, Alexander, as being a Jewish name. And in fact, until today, the name Sender, a variant of Alexander, is a Jewish name. Now, importantly, Greek conquest was never only about territory, but also about Greek ideology known as Hellenism. Greek culture and language, their obsession with art and architecture and the human body and the discus throwers at the Olympics. That's what they preached, that's what they taught. When they captured land, they always infused it with their way of life. Now, it's important for us as Jews to realize that Hellenism and the Greek ideology is antithetical to Judaism. Judaism always places God at the center of our focus and our consciousness. Either way, the Greek capture of Jerusalem and their integration of Hellenism was somewhat successful in making a headway into small pockets of Jews, especially the upper class, the higher class, and the priestly class. But Hellenism was not a major force in the Jewish world yet. Alexander dies in the year 323, and it was clear that there was not a single personality that could actually fill his shoes, and ultimately his kingdom is divided into three separate empires. The Ptolemite Greeks in Egypt, the Seleucid or Assyrian Greeks in Assyria and Persia out east, and the Macedonian Greeks in Macedonia, in Greece proper. Now, originally, Israel was under the control of the Ptolemite Greeks, who were more liberal and tolerant and didn't push Hellenism or the Hellenization agenda that forcefully. In the year 198 before the Common Era, so we're talking about 125 years after the death of Alexander, the Seleucid or Assyrian Empire captures Judah, and under the leadership of Antiochus III, they assume control over Israel. In the year 175, Antiochus IV, known as Antiochus, or he called himself Antiochus Epiphanes, meaning Antiochus the Great, or even God Manifest. Now, he was derisively called behind his back Antiochus Epimenides, or Antiochus the Lunatic, because as we will find out, he indeed was a lunatic. And he began to try to push the agenda of Hellenism much strongly. He began to meddle in the internal Jewish affairs, beginning with him assigning the high priesthood, taking it away from the righteous high priest Onias and giving it to his brother Jason. Now, the high priest was in charge not only of the spiritual roles, but also of being a tax collector. And Jason came to Antiochus and said, hey, I can be much more successful in getting you more taxes. I can help you accelerate your goal of Hellenization. And he said, you know what? That sounds like a good plan. Jason becomes the Kohen Gadol, the high priest. And he decides to build a gymnasium and try to make more of an effort into pushing Hellenism onto the Jews. In the year 168, Antiochus intensified his Hellenization efforts, and he established severe, restrictive edicts against Jewish life. He banned study of Torah, the observance of Shabbat or Jewish holidays, eating kosher, circumcision, the laws of Nida on pain of death. Antiochus actually installed an idol in the temple for the Greek god Zeus and began sacrificing to it. Now remember, for us Jews, and especially the Jews of those times, there was no greater defilement of the sacrosanct than to have the Jewish temple have an idol erected there and have sacrifices be done to that. They began a wholesale program of Hellenizing the Jews. They would force feed pigs to Jews randomly. There's stories of Jewish mothers who were thrown off cliffs for having circumcised their newborn sons. We read about the famous story of martyrdom of Hannah and her 7 sons. So in the year 167, in a town called Modi'in in central Israel, a group of Greek soldiers came and erected an altar and sought out Jews to sacrifice a pig to the idol Zeus. The local priest, a man by the name of Mattityahu or Matthias, makes a speech and says to the people, don't do this, this is terrible, this is a terrible defilement. But a local Hellenized Jew says, you know what, I'll do it. Right? He goes up there and takes the sword to sacrifice the pig. Mattityahu, in a fit of zealous rage, grabs a sword that he had taken with him. He slashes this Hellenized Jew, and then he turns his anger towards the Greek commanders, and all the Jews pounce upon him from all sides and slay them. Heading to the hills, thus begins the Maccabean revolt. Antiochus, sitting in his palace in Antioch in Turkey, he sends a general by the name of Apollonius with 2,000 men to squelch the small ragtag rebellion. The Jewish people, or the Jewish forces now commanded by Judah Maccabee, they have 600 men, and they wait for him in the hills. And as the Greeks come between them, they pounce upon them, surprise them, and slaughter them all. Judah takes Apollonius' sword, and he would use it for the rest of the war, kind of the way David took the sword of Goliath and used that for his wars. The news of the revolt began to spread like wildfire throughout the countryside. Masses of eager Jews joined the resistance. Judah's army swells to 1,000 men. Antiochus sends his general, Siron, with 4,000 men to destroy this renegade group. They landed in the port of Jaffa. Confident supremely in their pending success, they encountered the Jews in battle near Bet Horon. The Greeks were totally not prepared for this guerrilla warfare. The Jews fought like maniacs. They had these battle cries and they would scream, Min kamocha be'elim Hashem. They would pounce upon them totally recklessly. Ancient Jews fought like maniacs. In the ensuing battle, 800 Greek soldiers were killed and the remainder scattered, ran for their lives. Antiochus heard about this, and he was determined to absolutely crush the rebellion. And this time he sent an army of 40,000 soldiers, 7,000 horsemen under the leadership of 3 different generals to absolutely crush this rebellion. They were so confident in their victory that they advertised in slave markets that there's going to be a tremendous glut of cheap slaves, and a bunch of slave owners came and prepared for this pending marketplace. Now, one of their generals decided to surprise Judah's encampment in Mitzpah, and he took, his name was, I don't remember his name. He took 5,000 men. He came in the middle of the night to Judah's camp in Mitzpah. Now, Judah got wind of this, and he said, you know what, we're going to surprise them in their encampment. He walked through the night. They were fasting the whole night, studying Torah. They come to the Greek encampment. They split into 4 from all 4 sides. They caught the Greeks by the they pounce from all sides, screaming. All the Greeks are sleeping. They wake up to these blood-curdling screams. And this tremendous victory succeeded in killing 9,000 soldiers and stunting the force of this tremendous army. Soon afterwards, news came from Antioch that Antiochus died. This actually proved to be incorrect. He died a little bit later. But this gave respite to Judah to march on and liberate Jerusalem. And after a 3-year revolt, the Maccabees succeeded in recapturing the temple and rededicating it. In the temple, they found a single uncontaminated flask of oil, which had the signet of the high priest, and miraculously, though only intended to last for 1 day, it lasted for 8. The sages of Israel instituted the holiday of Hanukkah to commemorate the tremendous victory of the Jewish people, but more importantly, the victory of the Jewish religion in its untainted purity over the forces of evil. The war waged on for many years. Ultimately, all of Judah's brothers would die, save for one, Shimon. But the Jews succeeded in reestablishing sovereignty over Israel, which they would retain for almost 100 years until the arrival of Pompey and the Romans. This is the story of Hanukkah. Happy Hanukkah.